Hello again. We're playing some more Dwarf Fortress today, and for some reason we're building above ground again. Why the above ground? Why? Well, because you sure seemed to like it last time. Also because when I asked you guys for ideas, one that caught my eye was this. Build a skyscraper for a fort in Dwarf Fortress. Everything has to be built within the constraints of the tower. That's a pretty cool idea, but I probably won't be super strict about that last part because for the most part I like to enjoy playing video games. Anyway, that's what we're doing today, building above ground in Dwarf Fortress. But like, tall this time. Very good, let's get into it. We're embarking in the Windy Dimensions, aka anywhere around me whenever I get into probiotics. Right, we're bringing alpacas and turkeys with us and setting up here, betwixt two snaking rivers. Right, let's just get down into the ground a bit for some stones and balls, the walls are leaking. Okay, no problem, we'll just set up a pump stack and okay, never mind. It looks like we're actually embarking onto the Mountain of Jails, on the Silken Continents, which sounds very nice. Our mighty skyscraper here will be named Bankrex. There's no trees though, which could be a pain. I mean, we can just dig down into the caverns and get wood from there. And, oh, these are just brooks. We can't use those for watermills or anything. Okay, never mind. We're actually embarking to the Steppe of Wind, aka anywhere around me whenever I get into probiotics. Anyway, this time our fortress will be called Ragcleans, and we've got this lovely waterfall here. If it weren't for the whole above-ground skyscraper thing, then I'd perhaps dig down and make a little waterfall tavern down there, but never mind. Let's get started on the first few layers of the tower, which are home to the first few workshops we'll need as well as some basic bedrooms for our original set of dwarves. Since we're living above ground, we'll be eating filthy crops of the light, which I think means they need to be exposed to sunlight, but rather than just throwing seeds into the ground at the base of the tower, I'd like to make a little raised platform for them. This means we'll need to do some pumping, and not the fun kind of pumping, the kind that has a tendency to result in drowning, and not the fun kind of drowning. But since the growing platform is only 1 Z-level off the ground, this should be a very simple task. Using a pair of water wheels I can power a pump to get water from the river up into this tile here, and then have a dwarf manually power another pump here in the grow room to bring up just enough water to cover every tile. And that's it. It's that simple. Wait, why are there corpses here? Okay, so a pair of dwarves managed to fall into here and drown during all that exciting pumping action. I guess we'd best make them some tombs before getting on with the farming. I spent quite a while poking around to see what we had growing wild here, but eventually just ended up planting prickleberries, which apparently make one of the lowest value boozes possible, but booze is booze and dwarves need booze. A little later I'll plant rye for flour and something called kenaf, which can be spun into thread. Now we won't be using these pumps again, but the water wheels might come in handy later for a millstone or something, so we'll keep those around just in case. Right, we've lost 2 dwarves already, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm sure from here on out we'll be, Wait, why is Odil's corpse lying at the base of the waterfall here? And how did Zephon die of dehydration? For fuck's sake, guys. Never mind, I just missed a massive migrant wave arriving to bring our population up to 37 here, just in time for our first strange mood of the fort. Irosh Shad Malkadol, who apparently isn't interested in any of our workshops, so I'm just scrambling to build everything we don't already have for him. It turns out he wanted a clothier's shop, and some wool cloth, which we rather luckily just bought from a human caravan a moment ago. With it, he's made Mebzoth Gongash do Barrakud, an alpaca wool hood. Very nice, Irosh. We'll put that up on the fridge right away. With word of our incredible hood-making skills spreading across the windy continents, more migrants flow in, so we'd best make more bedrooms. One of these fine bedrooms could be yours. All you need to do is subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Okay, did you do it? Good. You don't actually get a bedroom. Let's move on. I feel like we're off to a pretty good start here, provided you can sweep the 4 stout little corpses under the rug, 2 of which drowned, 1 fell off a waterfall whilst fighting a fish, and another just didn't drink anything. But aside from those minor incidents, all is going well at Ragcleans. I can't help but think we should probably be starting a military soon though. I'll be making heavy use of crossbows in this playthrough, something I tried to do in my previous videos and did rather poorly at. I read your comments and assure you it'll go better this time. But that's quite a bit later. What's next? Well, engraving bedrooms, it turns out. Folks here aren't especially happy. I can't imagine why. Whatever the cause, some artistic floors and walls will lift their spirits, I'm sure. So anyway, like I said, I wanted to make use of Mark's dwarves again. To facilitate that, we're surrounding the ground floor with fortifications. Just after those are built, a dwarf caravan arrives and we oblige them as usual, buying some tat we likely don't need, mainly random cloth. A trickle of migrants crest the horizon to bring the fort's population up to 55, which grants village status to ragcleans. To celebrate, Usdoth Robermeng claims a clothier and immediately shouts out Rotigamath, a Kenaf headscarf. Thanks, Usdoth. We'll treasure that. The population is currently growing at a rate faster than I can build bedrooms, so as much as I hate to do it, let's just build a big dorm. Whenever I play Dwarf Fort, everyone always asks me why I didn't just build a really nice dorm. But I also get a load of questions about how I keep my dwarves so happy, so I don't know. You do the math. Another thing that I got a lot of in my previous above ground Dwarf Fort video were very mean people calling me an elf. So in this fortress I made sure to offer this elven caravan a wooden bin full of bone crafts, and even slipped in a single crutch made of wood, just to really piss them off. I definitely didn't do this accidentally. No, it was completely intentional. Either way, with the knife ears gone, it's time to expand the tower, both upwards and outwards. Every few floors I'm adding an extra tile in each direction. This is for a few reasons. Obviously it's just convenient to have more space, but it also makes the tower look interesting from the outside. I imagine. Not like we can see it. In any case, we need that space because more migrants just arrived, bringing us up to 75 total. All these dwarves and we haven't even started smelting. Let's get to that. I've just set up work orders to try and make sure I always have plenty of coke being made from the decent amounts of lignite and bituminous coal coming up from the mines. Though I do often struggle to get this workflow completely right. If you don't have constant access to wood and a work order to keep a backup supply of charcoal, then the whole thing can grind to a deadlock. But that's only if you don't have it all set up right, which surely I'd never do, right? Haha. Yeah, anyway. Erosh Osodinod, a different Erosh this time. The last one was Shad Malkadol, in case you've forgotten already. Whichever Erosh it is, they claimed a craft shop and made Mat Zangoth, a dolomite ring. Which is appropriate considering the whole tower is made of dolomite. Now, we've got a messy and somewhat random arrangement of workshops down here, so it's time we made a slightly more organised floor somewhere higher up the tower, eventually clearing this space on the ground floor for a barracks or something like that. But with yet more migrants flooding in, swelling the population to 82, it's time to scrape the sky a little more, adding a floor for a couple of temples. I had been petitioned at some point to make a temple for one particular religious sect or another, but I can't for the life of me remember which it was. So, yeah, whatever, it's fine, they'll deal with it. I also didn't realise until now that we have a mayor. Mayor Dastot Tatkabuk will share his floor with those temples and he'll like it. Let's just hope he's not obsessed with rings like Bim was. And right on cue, the dwarves from the mountain homes showed up and elevated us to a barony. So naturally I chose Dastot to take up the mantle, since he's already got a nice bedroom. Ah, isn't this quaint? We're just living a nice quiet life in our tower, farming our crops, drinking our booze. It's so quiet that we haven't even thought to make a military. Nothing could spoil such a lovely day. Oh look, it's the Hydra, Eti Enorefafire Lericoche, a giant dragon-like monster with 7 biting heads. How wonderful of you to stop by. Wait, Eti, what are you doing to the alpacas? Ah, dear. So yeah, thankfully I did at least have the forethought to make a drawbridge at the entrance to the tower some time ago, so we can just shut ourselves in and hastily throw a few crossbows together whilst we're stuck. But seeing such a majestic beast must have inspired Reg Mistemeb, which I'm sure is actually pronounced Reg, but calling him Reg just makes him sound like a right proper northern lad to me. Anyway, Reg needed some bones to make Logemamot, a donkey bone amulet. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. While we're trapped, we're still going to need some wood, so it's about time we dug deeper. Deep enough to find some caverns in order to harvest their large wooden fungal phalluses in any case. Just as I was making some things to fling at the Hydra to try and kill it, our good friend Ithei Kefasali Ayi, the Etin, showed up. Well, this is great, I thought. Kaiju fight! Fuck yeah! Oh. Well, that was a letdown. The Hydra, it turns out, rather seriously outmatches the Etin and dismantled it without sustaining a single injury. That doesn't bode well. Regardless, with a couple of crossbows made, we can assign a squad of Marks Dwarves and start yeeting bolts at it from safety. You just have to station a Marks Dwarf squad within this safe area and they'll shoot at anything hostile within range. We kind of just have to wait for the Hydra to bumble into range, and even when it is in range, we're not usually doing much to it before it bumbles back out. We'll just keep doing this and eventually we'll kill it, I guess. Wait, where's it going? Oh no, an elven caravan. Well, let's see how this plays out. Yeah, pretty much as expected. Silly elves. At this point I'm beginning to suspect it's simply rejecting the concept of death. Look at this litany of injuries and yet it's still just wandering around, occasionally slaughtering something just for kicks. And oh no, a migrant wave. And it's a big one too. Oh god, the humanity. The dwarf manatee? Never mind. At this point the Hydra has killed too many to name. We'll be building a great many tombs if we make it beyond this era of strife that we've found ourselves trapped in. But all the greatest art is born of tragic circumstances. The unfortunately named Vabok Azrera Dumbass has claimed a clothier's shop to make Sosadotem Vumom Asmol, a simple Kenaf cloak. Okay, so I guess some really rather dull art is also born of tragic circumstances. Fair enough. Once more though, I refer you to this list of injuries. How is this thing still alive? Oh, it's not, it's dead. It's over. It's gone? Okay. Abre las puertas. Es hora de enterrar a los muertos. Sorry, I had some Spanish caught in my throat there. But seriously, there's a lot of burial in our near future. Multiple entire floors of the tower dedicated to small individual tombs. Imagine if you had just arrived at a new home after a long journey across the continent on shorter than average legs, and were greeted with the teeth of an extremely stubborn Hydra. What a disappointing end to their journeys. A human caravan showed up soon after to remind me that bolts are really rather valuable, and I always make way too many, so I guess we'll sell some for some random human tat. Anyway, now that we're in the relative clear when it comes to threats to the fortress, Bembul Ubuladem has claimed a craft shop and is asking for cut gems, which can be resolved easily enough, allowing him to make Imsal Gigin Nabar Tak, a limonite puzzle box. A fun little artifact for the kids, I guess. More migrants have arrived, bringing the population to 97, which kind of feels a little low considering how long we've been here, but I suppose that makes sense when you consider how full the tomb floors are. There really are a whole lot of corpses. And since we popped the cork on the caverns earlier, monster slayers keep showing up and are fighting down there with Crundles and Cave Toads, which is the much less popular dwarven version of Dungeons & Dragons. I should probably make a squad of melee fighters for when the inevitable torrent of beasties start rising up out of there. But it turns out I should have been more concerned with beasts from the skies, as the rock named Yek Futathesithi showed up while I was making some neat shapes up at the top of the tower. According to this, all beneath its mighty wings should fear the sky. Well, we live in the sky, and because we've just got our staircase exposed like a stripper doing a handstand, Yik here is just able to fly down our hole. I sent the ranged squad in to do what they can, but thankfully we had a dwarven caravan sitting around and their guards were eager to get involved, probably saving me a few extra spaces in the tombs. So anyway, we killed it, but not without a few losses, mind you. And literally moments later, a great hairy nematode named Sithasi Lumithamara turned up. He's apparently bloated, so I can understand why he's a bit grouchy. I get that way too. Every time I get back into probiotics. How about the third time? Was it funny then? No? Okay, cool. It's also poisonous, which is never good. So once more I sent the Marks Dwarves in to do their best, expecting a pretty rough outcome, but Sithasi was actually pretty distracted by a gang of Crundles, giving the dwarves plenty of free shooting time. We did lose Tekod Fikodcab from the squad despite the easy fight, but again I had expected much worse, so I'll take one dwarf dead for a forgotten beast any day of the week. We've been here for almost 5 years now, and I still haven't made a place for the guinea fowl we brought along with us to nest, and I could use some eggs to make nicer meals to keep our dwarves happier. We've got some real grumpy kills in the fort right now, so this little space here ought to do. Guinea fowl produce no meat when butchered. Much like myself, they exist only to lay eggs. The upside being that they reach adulthood very quickly, so even though we left it late, we'll have more eggs than we can use very quickly. It would be nice to start farming something fat producing, mainly for soap honestly, and throughout the life of the fort we've had a breeding pair of pigs arrive with migrants, which is convenient as pigs don't need to graze, meaning I can just stick them in a room and expect fat little piglets and milk from them every so often. Just like in my previous fortresses, something has gone wrong with the caravan's AI and they're stuck, which is probably the result of a load of their guards being killed by Big Bird. As usual, the solution was just to deconstruct the depot, which is actually convenient. I had wanted to for a while as the ground underneath it wasn't paved. I saw this as an opportunity to get a little bit opulent, putting iron flooring underneath the shiny golden trade depot. If that doesn't scream flagrant misuse of resources to incoming caravans, then I don't know what will. What would probably be a rather good use of resources is a hospital, so let's make one. I don't want it to be high up in the tower since it should be relatively easy to reach from the caverns in an emergency. So instead of clearing space on a lower floor, we'll just have the tower grow a little iron wart and throw our wounded in there for the time being. Whilst we're building that, Ineth Olinzas has made an extremely uninteresting artifact. Nelas Dusim, a cashew wood crown. I told you it was uninteresting, let's move on. We're setting up that melee squad now. I'm going to arm them with battle axes, though they'll also end up using a few random weapons the fort has acquired through the deaths of unfortunate visitors over the years. I got this message as we move into year 105 that the world has passed into the Age of Legends, which I suppose is a thing, though I don't know whether that serves any function to me. To mark the turning of the age, some elves arrive and issue a very frightening warning. I'm literally shaking right now. Scary elves. I honestly considered just opening fire on the elves as they approached, but decided it'd be best to just passive-aggressively buy an elephant from them instead. I shoved the elephant in the tavern in its cage, making a crude sideshow of a majestic and intelligent beast. On that note, I'd like to make a zoo full of majestic and intelligent sideshows in Dwarf Fort sometime. The Basement of Curiosities is one of my favourite things on the internet, so it'd be fun to do something similar. Let me know if that sounds interesting and maybe we'll turn this skyscraper into a zoo. I'd also be tempted to just make a dramatic reading of the Basement of Curiosities, but I should probably check whether Rock Paper Shotgun are okay with me doing that first. For now though, I think we'll just make the Penthouse of Curiosities. That's as reasonable a thing as any to do with the top floor of this tower. But first, more migrants, who say they've arrived despite the danger, a message I've actually never seen before. I assume they're referring to the vast halls of dead dwarves that rest in the tower and the swaths of bone and blood scattering the whole area. Or perhaps they just knew that Angzak, the huge eyeless crow, was coming up from the caverns. I sent in the squads and they all had a great time killing it, except for the 3 Marks dwarves that died and Uvash, the axe dwarf, who got pretty badly hurt. But this is why we have a hospital now. He's laid up in bed awaiting sutures and then he'll be fine. Angzak was followed near immediately by Nawo, a gigantic emaciated shrike with a swinging trunk. Alright. Apparently it's got a poisonous bite too, so this should be fun. It's just ripped a monster-hunting axe dwarf apart down there, so now it's our turn. It went surprisingly well actually, no one died, but Udib here did get poisoned, which seems to have caused nerve damage. I guess he'll live, but probably not particularly well. I'll just leave him in the squad and let nature take its course. Irosh Logemkaman? No, not that Irosh. No, not that one either. This is the 3rd Irosh to make an artifact here, and he's claimed a metal shop, which is always exciting because that's where the good things come from. He's gathered up a whole load of gems, bones, and some iron to make Kestigaz Zoglar Vetek, an iron helmet. Not bad. I'd have preferred a weapon, of course, but this is a very valuable helmet. Around 57,000 dwarf bucks, in fact. It's covered in sapphires and crundle bones, which I really rather love. Once again, some merchants are stuck. Just a pair of elves and their pack animals. I'll probably need to deconstruct the depot again, but it sure would be fun to just cut them down, wouldn't it? Well, we did that, and it was indeed fun. Alright, I'm putting up iron bars on the top floor in place of windows, since we don't have any sand here. I'll need to ask everyone to bring glass with their next caravans, but for now, prison-style bars will do. I'm also putting a cap onto the tower, since we're at the highest accessible Z levels now. Whilst I was getting started on that, another forgotten beast reared its ugly head. A huge blob of fire. Right. It appears to be stuck up here on a mushroom, so I sent the squads down to just stand near it, and sure enough, it's completely stuck. A couple of bolts killed it. Very disappointing beast. During the combat, the Marks Dwarf Imush Vic Rigalath said, "I cannot just stand by. This might require an answer." He's not exactly Clint Eastwood, is he? Are you feeling lucky, punk? Anyway, with that out of the way, we can get back to work and put iron hatches on the roof of the fortress to secure it. Which means we can make our great work up here with the help of a dwarf caravan selling some fairly pedestrian animals. Welcome to the penthouse suite. A little, kind of mediocre zoo. Look, when you live underground, a duck might be very exciting, alright? Look at them all just observing the animals. Don't they look so happy? I want to take a moment to thank everyone for all the support on the channel over the last few months. Patrons and channel members especially, it's very kind of you all. That's where this story is going to end though, at least for now. I'd like to make a proper zoo, raiding neighbours for their animals and all that fun stuff. If this is the platform I use for that, then so be it, but I can't say for sure just yet. If you've learned nothing else from this, then at least remember to remain indoors. It's dangerous out there. There's hydras to deal with. So thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.